This is a video demonstrating the features of the dynamic wallboard product. So to start with, when we log into the portal, this is the layout for the wallboard. We have the concept of a card. So in the middle here, we can see a demo card, and you can basically drag and drop this card anywhere you want it on the screen, and you can resize it to whatever size you need it to be on the screen. So that's the concept of a card. We have a series of different cards. If I remove this card for the moment and go to the top right hand corner here, we can see add card. So there's a series of different card options we can choose. So if I take the agent list to start with, and then from here we can pick and choose the call groups or queues on the phone system. So if I grab my call group and say our sales and support team and click next, and then we have a whole lot of different columns that we can choose for the table for the agents list. The ones ticked at the moment are the default values that are selected, but you can pick and choose whichever columns you need. There's an option here when you hover over this little icon, it tells you exactly what the column is and what data is going to be provided. There's also an option to override the name. So if you wanted to give it a preferred name, you're able to do that. And also to set a color. If you want to give it a custom color for the column, you can assign that here. There's also an alert level. So this allows you to set a particular alert level where the wallboard will flash amber or red, depending on the alert level set and the column that you're choosing. But if we just take the default values for the moment. So on the next screen is the layout options. So we can give the card a title if you want to. We can set font sizes, ordering the table by certain values, change the layout, set background colors, text colors, etc. But to start with, I'll just take the default values. Okay, so this adds the card to our wallboard. I can now drag and drop and resize this. So based on the number of agents that we have in the table, we can set the size of this card, and then I can position it on the screen where I want it. So that's the agent card. The next one is the live queue stats. So if I select that option, again, if I select our sales, support, and my queue, again, series of columns that we can choose, hover over the icon to get details about the column, override with the preferred name or an alert level, and then next. So here, for example, we can change the layout style to a tile rather than a table layout. And if I just click next or add there, this adds our card. So here I can see a tile view of our queue data at the moment with agents available, calls in progress, calls waiting, etc. Okay, the next card is the queue totals. So these are totals for these particular queues today. So again, if I grab our queues, again, pick and choose which columns I want. Set the layout. Again, I'll take the default settings. So here's our queue data. So you can see we can now start resizing things around, moving things around, laying out the wallboard how we want it to appear. So there's our live stats and our queue data. The next one here we have is a single data point. So if you want to display one particular data point large on the screen, again, if I grab our queues, and for this one I can select, for example, calls in connected, so total calls in that have been answered. And here I can then start changing the background colors. So say background red, blue, text white, title white, and add. So that adds in our card with its colors. Again, resizes to whatever size I want it. Or we can add another one, say for example, again, select our queues and calls missed. And next, then we can change that background color to red, title white, text white, and add. So far no missed calls today. There's also some tables within this data points. So again, if I select our queues, and one interesting one is always calls unreturned list. So I can select calls unreturned. And here's our little table showing a list of all the calls that have come in but not been returned so far. So fortunately, so far today, there's no calls that we haven't returned. There's also charts and graphs available. So a number of different chart options. There's the pie chart of calls answered with an SLA. There's a call breakdown chart. There's a percentage gauge chart here for called answered, or a stack profile. So if I just grab our stack profile, again, grab our cues, and pick which columns we want. So I can say, okay, I want all 3 of those. And next, we'll just take the default values again. So here's our chart added. It's all dynamically resizable. So as we resize the card, the chart will resize. So we can then place it where we want it on the screen and resize it to our screen. At this point, I'll lock the wallboard. This will ensure all the cards remain where they are when we come back. So that's now locked, and this was then what you would see on the wallboard. If we just go to add card again, there's a ticker option here again that appears on the bottom. I'll show you that on the next wallboard. But we can add, say, the percentage gauge, sales, support. Next, add. So here's a percentage gauge showing percentages of calls answered today. So there's our wallboard layout. So you can see we're starting to run out of space on this wallboard, but there's the option along the top here to add additional wallboards. So, for example, you might have multiple teams in the same office. A sales team might have their own wallboard, a support team might have their own wallboard, or you may have multiple officers, each with their own wallboard, and then these can be added along the top. So a single portal where they all log into, but multiple wallboards along the top. So if I just click on the wallboard icon here, you can see here's another layout, and you can see the example of the ticker running along the bottom on that particular wallboard. So that's the wallboard product, very dynamic, changing layout, changing styles and colors, making it look and feel like your corporate identity. You can also add images to the wallboard. If you want to add your logo to the wallboard, you can change the background color of the wallboard. All those kind of features exist. Great, so that's the product.